Speedbowl Scene, a weekly auto racing magazine covering the events at the Waterford Speedbowl. 1995 brings a new management team to the track. During the 1995 racing season, Speedbowl Scene will be covering the race results, in-depth interviews with drivers and crew members, also interviews with track officials covering all the new rules for the 1995 racing season. Bob Potter, Scott Spaulding, Mike Gaeta, and the 1995 modified champion David Gaeta. Also interviews with mini-stock drivers Mike Fernault and Jeff Carnes. The 1993 late model champion Tom Fox will be on hand to talk about his return for the 1995 season, as well as Mark St. Hilaire, Matt Kovaluk, Larry Cody, and Mark Atkinson. And interviews with Charles Bailey III, Ed Reed Jr., and Ernie LaRose, representing the Sturgis stocks. And highlights from the 1995 racing calendar. Also new for the 95 season is an on-site instant replay system. It comes to the improvements at the Shoreline Oval. So hold on for the fastest half hour in auto racing. Speedbowl Scene will be right back.
Welcome to the all-new Speedbowl Scene. We're here with four of our top modified competitors for 1995 at the Waterford Speedbowl. Bob Potter, our defending 1994 champion David Gaeta, Scott Spaulding, and Michael Gaeta. Welcome to the show, guys. There are many major rule changes in the modified division this year at the Waterford Speedbowl. Bob, why don't we talk about some of these rule changes?
Well, I think it's going to benefit everybody because the rules are more closer to other tracks that we run around, and I think competitive-wise, we can go from one track to another.
Okay, for those who are not familiar with the rule changes, the modifieds are back to the SK-type modified rule, which would switch the carburetors back from a 4-barrel to a 2-barrel, and the killer clutches have been eliminated from the modified division. David, how do you feel that will affect your racing style this year, and how will that affect the competition at the Speedway?
Well, I think it's going to tighten the cars all back up again. Hopefully we'll still be able to pass. I know if we can run the high groove again, we'll have to see what happens.
Do you see more side-by-side racing this year as a result of the change?
I think it's going to be harder to get side-by-side with another car because you'll be losing the horsepower that we had before. But hopefully, as long as the upper groove is there, we can do it.
Let's talk about that for a bit, if we might. Mike, you've been racing for a number of years at the Speedbowl, and you've raced both 4-barrel and 2-barrel modifieds. How do you feel that this is going to affect the competition this year?
Well, 4-barrel modifieds are a lot more fun to drive. I think Bob would agree with that. You get more of a kick, more power, and it is easier to pass and race with a 4-barrel.
How does it affect the handling of the car?
Might get a little looser, but that's about it. The 2-barrel, you're on the throttle a lot more. It's more like a slot car kind of thing. With a 4-barrel, you can hang it out a little bit.
Bob, would you agree with that?
Yeah, you know, to a certain limit, you know, the 4-barrel will give you that little extra power, you know, trying to get by a guy. But I think if your car's dialed in, you get a good handling good, I think it'll be a little easier to get the car handling with a 2-barrel. And, of course, I was in favor of the 4-barrel, and I think it'll make a difference. I think it'll be a little bit better racing with the 2-barrel. Just slow the guys down, and guys won't be on a ragged edge, some of the guys, you know, because you do have some guys that have quite a bit of experience down there, but there's quite a few guys that don't have the experience, and I think that'll help them out to learn how to drive a little better.
Scott, what about you? Are you swayed one way or the other?
Either way is fine. The racing there the competition's very good all the time. With the 2-barrels, I feel it's a little bit easier. It's a little bit, makes everybody a little bit more smoother, and just things will be, I believe, more tighter racing.
With the resurrection of the 2-barrel carburetor at Waterford, the car counts should rise in the pit area, which would make the competition a little bit more difficult and might make it more difficult to get into a feature event on a Saturday night. Would you agree?
I don't think you'll see a lot of changing of faces. I mean, we've had a lot of different rules and sets of rules at Waterford over the years, and tend to have, you know, most of the same faces. A lot of, you know, people just run Waterford, so I don't know how many more cars will come, maybe a couple, but I don't really expect a lot more cars.
David, coming back as 1994 champion, who do you feel will be your chief competition on the racetrack this year?
We had like 12 or 13 different winners last year, so everybody's got a shot at it. I can't pinpoint one person or two people that are going to make a run for the championship because it's been different people the past 5 years. It's hard to tell.
With the upcoming 1995 season comes the advent of the Budweiser Racing Championship at Waterford, which adds substantially to the point fund available to all of these drivers, which was not available in the past, total or in part. Bob, how do you feel about the advent of a point fund being resurrected at Waterford?
I think it's the best thing that anybody ever did. I wish all the tracks would go back to a point fund because it kind of gives you a little extra money in the wintertime to get your car back together. And it's just like a little bit of a reward, you know, for your accomplishments through the year. But I definitely think it's a great way to get back into the whole, you know, point situation. And like I say, the prize money will help a lot.
David, it'll make you run even harder in 95 to achieve the same championship that you achieved in 94.
I hope we can do it. I love the point fund. Like Bob said, it gives you a little extra money to get the car back together. If you do have another year to run the following year, and there's always a couple bills left over at the end of the year anyway.
Well, I just feel it'll also make the competition much tighter. It's nice to know that you can win some money towards the end of the year, like Bob said, and to me, it means a lot to have. I feel I'm hoping to be in the top 5 this year, and the extra money is a big asset to the point fund.
Mike, your sentiments would be pretty much the same.
I think it's just great to have a point fund period. It's more money for the competitors and more interest in the sport.
Hi, I'm MG Geer, and joining me is the mini stock drivers of the 1995 season. It's a new division that we're going to be running on Saturday nights, 4-cylinder cars, entry-level division, very inexpensive to get into. Joining me is Jeff Carnes and Mike Fernald. Welcome to the show, guys.
Nice to be here.
Now, Mike, you almost won the championship last year.
It was close.
It was
Real
close. How close?
About 35 points, which is only about 7 positions.
7 positions on one race. And Jeff, you ran also last year.
Yep.
And it ran every other week on Sunday, right?
Yep.
Okay. So now every Saturday night, is that going to be? So it's going to be a big change for you guys, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a little more expensive, I think, as in with tires, you know, more track time. But then again, we'll get a little more experience, and we'll get our sponsors will get a little more.
Right. Exposure.
Yeah, exposure. That's the word I'm looking for.
Mike, what about you? Basically the same situation.
Basically the same, yeah. It's going to be a little tougher running every week, but I think, like Jeff said, with the sponsors getting more exposure, they'll probably be more willing to help us out financially and keep us in there.
Right. Okay. Now, what kind of cars do both of you run?
I run a 83 Nissan 200 SX.
Okay, Mike?
79 Ford Mustang.
Okay, because it's unlimited, basically, what cars you can run in the division. So, you know, during practice, there was everything from Volvos to Mustangs.
Yep.
And as far as the different types of cars, are they all fairly competitive? Is it real close, or?
Yeah, the Mustangs seem to dominate the track, but
I noticed
then
you
again,
during practice, you were doing pretty good. You were keeping right up with the
yeah. I think it's all in what you know, and you know.
Right. And you said something about the motor was.
Yeah, it's it's just needed some work.
Okay, so that's not the good motor.
Yeah,
The motor's
that
still
was definitely not the good motor.
Okay.
The good motor should be on its way.
So you get a little worried about that, Mike, or you think he's trying to bluff you here?
I don't know. I'm concerned this year with Jeff. I think he's going to be a very competitive racer. He was last year, and this year, if he gets another motor in there, it's going to be tough.
Now, have any of you raced before this division?
Nope. First time. I started when I was 16. First got my license.
And you, Mike?
I drove a couple of enduro races.
Okay, so you had a little time on the track,
A
kind
little
of
bit of time, yeah.
knew what it was kind of about before you jumped into it. I mean, any plans for the future, moving up to different divisions?
Definitely. Definitely for me.
Okay.
Hoping on going on to driving school in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
Forgot what the name of it is, but going on to that, and then hopefully moving up into the big time.
Great. Mike?
Yeah, I definitely plan on moving up. I think we'll have to see how this year goes. But as far as next year, we'll probably move up to the Strickleys or something along that line.
Okay, move up to Strictly's, late models, and
Yeah, same
modifieds.
with me. Moving up to the Strickleys next year, most likely.
All right, sounds good. Thanks a lot, guys.
We're here with 3 of our top competitors in the strictly stock division at the Waterford Speedbowl, our defending champion, Charles Bailey III, Ernie LaRose, and many-time feature winner, Ed Reed. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks.
Charlie, last year you won the strictly stock championship by a slim margin over Mike Caprio. Charlie, how do you view the rule changes in your division this year, and what do you think the effect's going to be of the limited sportsmen being absorbed into the strictly stock division?
It'd be good. There's not many rule changes, just in the shroud area. So pretty simple, really, for the guys that appear to start moving up. Get a lot of help from us. I think it'll go fine.
Charlie, how do you view the changes in management at the Speedbowl this year? What effect do you think that'll have on the competition at the Speedway?
Seems to be going fine. With all the changes at the track and the improvements. Seems to be going real well.
Ernie, how long have you been competing at the Speedbowl?
This will be my 5th year overall.
Who do you see as your chief rivals on the racetrack this year, and how do you feel you'll match up?
I feel they're sitting right here with me. And there's a couple other guys that always run well, like Mike Caprio and Bud Keeney. Those guys run well. I hope to run good against them. These guys are always fast. We'll just do our best.
Eddie, you've won many features at Waterford. How many feature wins do you have at this point?
I think it's about 10 so far.
10 feature wins. What is your most memorable experience at the Speedbowl?
My first feature win. That was the best.
And when did that win take place at?
That was late in the year of 1991.
Eddie, what do you think the effect will be of absorbing the limited sportsman division into our Saturday night strictly stock division?
I think it'll be easy. I mean, there's a lot of cars out there. It'll be good.
And who do you see as your chief rivals on the track this year, Ed?
I'm also sitting next to two of them. Mike Caprio's a real good runner. John Gambino, he's also one of the top runners out there. There's a lot of guys out there that are, tough to beat.
Do you think that the changes in the rules will have any effect on your racing this year?
No, not at all.
Charlie, anything new for the 94 team this year?
Yeah, we're going to try and get our feet wet in the late model by June, hopefully. That's what we're shooting for. And to defend the championship, stay in the strictly stock for this full season of 95, that's all.
Are you going to be building your own car, or will you be driving for...
We'll be building our own car through Jay Stewart with people called More Lines and associate sponsors of Paul's TV, Quality Concrete, and Larry's Automotive from Danielson.
Ernie, are you looking to move up at any point?
Not this year. We've spent all our money on the car that we have to try to do the best we can in the division we run. We couldn't really afford to move up to late models for right now.
Good point made. It's incredible the amount of money that is spent on these race cars, the amount of time that goes into building these race cars and maintaining these race cars on a week-to-week basis. How much time do you spend on your car during the course of the week? Is it an every night deal? Is it a couple of hours, or is it burning the midnight oil?
I'm there every night. I get out of work at 3:30 and I'm at my garage at 4 till at least 9 or 10 every night of the week.
That's an awful lot of work on a hobby. Or do you see this as a hobby, or where do you see yourself going in another 5 years?
I don't really have any goals as far as a career in racing because it just doesn't seem to happen to a lot of people. You have to be in the right place at the right time. It's all I've ever done. I've always been into racing or at the races. As soon as I was old enough to drive, I was there driving. So I'll be driving as long as I can.
Now, Ed, you fielded 2 cars over the years at Waterford. You drive one, and your father, Red Reed Sr., has driven the other one. Will that be the case in 1995?
I will be fielding a car, but my father will be having a new driver this year, Pat Donnellan. Will be driving for him.
Okay, and Pat formerly had driven at the
Yes,
Speedbowl.
he's driven for another owner and for himself.
And quite successful in the
Yes,
past, too, I might add.
Yes,
So that's going to form a pretty potent combination.
Yeah, I hope so. That ought to be interesting.
Charlie, what's your most memorable experience at Waterford?
Probably winning the championship last year, late September.
And how many feature wins do you have to your credit at this point, Charlie?
8.
We'll be back to Speedbowl Scene after these messages from our sponsors. We're back to Speedbowl Scene, a weekly racing magazine covering the events at the Waterford Speedbowl. The late model division at the Waterford Speedbowl has yielded some of the most exciting racing action seen at any short track in the Northeast over the years. Sitting to my right are 4 of the top contenders for the late model championship for 1995 at Waterford: Mark St. Hilaire, Matt Kovaluk, Larry Cody, and Mark Atkinson. Welcome to the show. With the advent of new management at any racetrack come changes in the rules. Mark, there are undoubtedly rule changes in the late model division for 1995. What are some of those changes, and how will they affect your style of driving this year?
Well, one of the rules that I see that may help us is a gear rule, 557 gear rule. I ran the 557s before and worked good with some of the motor combos that I have, and I think it'll help us out. May hurt somebody else.
Will that affect the side-by-side racing scene in your division over the years, or will that enhance that competition?
I don't think it'll affect it at all. I tested the car Saturday, and I ran the 586s the last 2 years, and this year with the 557s, it didn't seem any different at all. I don't think it's going to affect it at all. If everyone's running the same thing, then the racing's got to be the same.
As far as side-by-side racing, the 557 should help a lot. But the other, rule changes like the tubular upper A-frames, those shouldn't really help. But, it's a little stronger, looks a lot neater in the cars with the tubular upper A-frames. It's just something that you can change your upper ball joint easier with, too. Let's go with a different type of a ball joint this year, too, in the upper A-frames. So that can help us change our bump steer and roll center and stuff like that.
That'll help. I think that...
Yeah, you're right. It should help us go side by side a lot better. It should open up the top groove for us a lot more and help us out all around.
I think the restarts are going to be a lot better also, but he's got the same gear. Most of the guys should accelerate just about the same amount. Some guys will have a little bit more than others.
Mark, with the upcoming Bud Blastoff on April 29th and 30th at the Speedbowl, how will these rule changes affect you on that day, and what might some of your strategy be?
I think they have to make the car more adjustable, and as far as strategy, finish. Run, finish, up front, hopefully.
With the advent of a new management team at the Speedbowl, come many changes in the faces of the officials and changes around the racetrack. Two of the biggest changes will be the addition of spotters around the racetrack to detect rough riding within each racing division at the Speedbowl. How do you feel about that?
Well, I don't think there was any rough riding at all last year. You guys?
Well, no, we just bumped into each other once in a while, occasionally on the track.
Accidents happen.
It's a contact sport.
As long as all the calls are made equal to everybody, there's going to be some good racing. There's always going to be a little bit of rubbing. And, that's what racing is.
That's
The
right.
nature of the beast.
That's right.
Yeah,
Like they say, rubbing's racing, and no matter where you go, you always have a little rubbing. But when someone decides to make a right turn instead of a left turn, that's where the black flag will come in handy. Hopefully it'll get enforced on an equal basis, like Mark said.
Yeah.
With the upcoming 1995 season, come changes within the driver roster. And in 1995, returning will be Tom Fox, a 1993 track champion at the Speedbowl and many-time feature winner. Do you see him as a chief rival this year?
Who? Tom who?
Larry, seriously, you've been running at the Speedbowl for many a year, and you've raced side by side with Tom Fox on many a Saturday night.
Oh, yeah. And it's been, I'd like to say fun, but more of a challenge than anything else. He is tough. He's a tough competitor. He usually brings good equipment, and he's going to be something to reckon with, especially with his new car on a Goodrow. It's going to be something to see.
And there are many, many other drivers to be reckoned with within the late model division in 95. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. No, you can't count anybody out. I think just about everybody here won last year. You finished up in the front, too, many races.
And close. I can't count out Phil Rondo either. Phil's definitely tough, and George McGugan is always fast also.
It's just a very competitive division that we're in right now. This late model division is, I think, the most competitive at the Speedbowl. We're just trying to keep the cars looking better and trying to go faster.
The expense of fielding a competitive race car is phenomenal, and the time spent is even more awe-striking. Matt, how many hours a week would you say you spend on your late model?
Well, it depends on the week, really. If you have a good night at the bowl, then your car goes home in one piece and you don't have to spend every night till midnight or so on the car. But if you don't have a good night, you could spend every night, Monday through Friday, actually Sunday through Saturday, noontime, every hour that you can, getting it back together for the next week. It all depends on the racing that night. Everyone has racing accidents. If you have happen to be unfortunate that night, then you got your work cut out for you the next week.
Larry, has it gotten any easier?
No, definitely not. The only thing that does help a lot is the sponsors. Trying to keep the sponsors happy, and I mean, my car is loaded with sponsors this year. We're doing real good with sponsors, and
let's give the sponsors a plug. Who's going to be sponsoring Larry Cody in 1995?
Well, I've got Morgan & White coming back again. I've got ACC, America's Choice Communications. It's a long-distance phone company. I've got Peak Technology. I've got Camaro Signs, Fast Eddie's Package Store, Diane's Beauty Corner, CB Fabrication.
One of the more impressive cars at last Saturday's practice at Waterford was Mark Atkinson's 7X. Mark, who's behind that car?
Oh, Brian and Pam Donovan own the car, and Head and Insurance is with us again as a sponsor. Concrete Express, Flanders of Waterford, Plantiers, Family Pizza of Niantic, Larry's Auto Machine, and we're really pretty happy with the way things were looking last week.
Well, I got basically the same sponsors on board from last year. I got Cobalt Trucking and Cobalt Sand and Gravel, P&H Construction, and JMA Trucking, Benell's Auto Body, which they help out a lot. Everyone swaps paint, so. I got Power Screen of Connecticut and Rhode Island. Goodbye Charlie's Liquors. I think that's about a full car right there.
Mark?
Well, last year, the drill out, they helped us financially quite a bit, and that helped us out a lot. Flanders Brake and Alignment, they helped us a lot with the suspension. You know, we really got the car hooked up last year. That's what helped us out a lot. The car's handling good. And, you know, this year, Burnett's Auto Machine is going to, you know, supply the power.
Hi, I'm MG Geer. Joining me is 1993 late model division champion, Tom Fox. Hey, Tom, how you doing?
Fine, thanks.
It's good to have you back in the 95 season.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, and I'll be glad to be at the Speedbowl in a week or so.
All right. Did you go to practice?
I was there as a spectator. Our car isn't ready yet.
Oh, okay. So that was just a show car you had at the mall show?
That was Tom Gaudreau's car that he campaigned last year.
Okay.
And we're building a brand new a 95 Monte Carlo for the Speedbowl this season.
Okay, now you and Tommy Gaudreau, you guys hooked up this year?
Yeah, we talked last year. Tom hurt his back last year, was looking for a substitute driver. He asked if I would be interested in driving his car, but I was under contract with Larry's Auto Machine of Stonington. So over the winter, we discussed putting a Larry's Auto Machine motor in his car, and we struck a deal, and we're on our way.
Okay. Now, I'm not going to ask you about any of the other sponsors because you already told me you couldn't remember them. What were the three big ones? I know you remember those.
I know a few of them. I got stuck on this once before. Al's Quality Auto Electric in New London, Valente's Auto Mall in Mystic, Larry's Auto Machine in Stonington, and the Bank Street Cafe in New London, and probably a few more that I missed. Sorry about that.
We'll get them next time.
We'll get them next time in Victory Lane, hopefully.
There you go. And you were there quite a bit in '93.
Yeah, we visited that place quite often. We had a decent year. We had a successful year on the racetrack. We really didn't enjoy some of the things that happened at the racetrack, which drove us away. Now that the new management has come in, we think it's going to be a much better place to race at, and we're looking forward to this year.
And what's your outlook for this year with the new management? Some new rule changes.
Yeah, some of the rule changes, I'm not real up to date on most of the rule changes. I don't think they've varied much in the last few years. They're letting us fabricate our own upper A-frames, which is nice. I don't know if it's a necessity or not, but the division is a great division in whole as it sits. Rule changes really aren't that necessary to keep our division successful and competitive. I'm glad that they didn't make any major ones, but I think that it's going to be a competitive season. There's a lot of guys who have won races out there in the last 4 or 5 years. If anybody's ever won a race in a late model at Waterford, they're capable of winning a whole bunch any season. Right. Very competitive division. Traditionally, there's your handful, 5 or 6 guys that win most of the races over the course of a few years. Mm-hmm. But from what I saw at practice last week, there were 6 or 7 cars out there that were all going very fast, so it should be a good season.
Okay, so you're looking to take home the championship again? So what you're running for?
Yeah, we would like to do that. We're going to be there every week. Try to win a lot of races and hopefully get another championship under our belt, but it'll be a struggle, I'm sure.
So do you think you're going to be at a disadvantage being absent a year?
A little bit. I probably would like a little bit of track time. Unfortunately, we missed the practice last weekend, as I mentioned before. Track time is good. I've been racing at Waterford for 15 years. You figure a guy ought to know how to go left after all that time.
Right.
But things do change. I was up at Stafford for a season, and driving that track is a lot different than driving Waterford. So a little bit of seat time, I think I'll be right back in the groove of things.
All right. Tom, what do you think of the new rules this year? With new sportsmanship, we're going to have new spotters around the track. Think it's going to improve conditions any?
I hope it improves it a little. It really wasn't that bad. A lot of people complain about it. It's really a tough call. Making calls like that is very difficult. I don't envy any of the officials that have to do that. It's hard to tell if it's a racing accident or if it isn't. Hopefully with the spotters there, it'll just keep that in the back of the competitors' minds. They'll be thinking that Big Brother might be watching, and maybe they'll take it easy. But I never really found that to be too much of a problem.
All right. Now, as far as your competitors go, who's going to be tough to beat out there this year?
There's going to be a whole slew of guys. A lot of guys have fast cars and good equipment. Larry Cody's won a lot of races out there. Phil Rondo, obviously, he's won more championships than I can count. I don't know if C.J. Fry is coming back or not. Matt Kobluck has a good fast car this year, one of my old ones. I probably shouldn't have sold it to him. probably 5 or 6 guys could win a race on any given night, so it's going to be
Right,
a
so
tough
it's gonna be a
deal
real
every
close
Saturday.
division.
It will.
Tom Fox, 1993 Late Model Championship. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
We'll be right back to Speedbowl Scene after a word from our sponsors. Welcome back to Speedbowl Scene. The Speedbowl crew has been busy preparing for the upcoming season. Look for a completely re-engineered infield, improvements in the concession area, and renovations to the bathrooms. The shows will also change with a much faster pace for events. Expect the racing action to be non-stop with improvements being made in setting up cars for features, quicker returns to racing from cautions, and a drastically reduced intermission. Also new is the advent of a customer service department, whose main goal is to make your night at the track a fun and family-oriented event. Here's a list of the upcoming events at the Waterford Speedbowl for the 1995 racing season. Thanks for being with us. We'll be back next Monday night at 8:30 with an all-new Speedbowl Scene.